You're listening to Beyond the Plate with Andrew Kaplan. This sounds so weird. You're listening to Beyond the Plate with Kappy.
Hey everyone, this is Kappy, and you're listening to Beyond the Plate, a podcast where I sit down in person with the world's culinary elite to explore their journey into the industry and the social impact they have made in their community. Every episode, we'll share inspiring stories of what it means to be in today's bustling hospitality industry. You can find me and keep up to date with this podcast across all social media platforms at On Kappy's Plate. That's ONKAPPYSPLATE. Or go to www.beyondtheplatepodcast.com. And please do us a favor and rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast on your preferred listening site of choice. Episode 0. Welcome, and it's a pleasure to meet you. In this episode, I'm going to share a little about who I am, why I'm doing this podcast, and what exactly this podcast will be about. My name is Andrew Kaplan. Many people call me Kappy. I grew up in the north suburbs of Chicago. My mother was the chef of the household, and my dad worked on the wholesale side of the food service industry, so that's where I got my background in food. After high school, I went to the University of Kansas in Lawrence, Kansas, go Jayhawks, for a couple years, and then I left there and decided to take another route and enrolled in the Culinary Institute of America, the CIA, in Hyde Park, New York. Had an incredible 21-month run there, which is what their associate's program is. And in the middle of my time there, did an externship at the Four Seasons Hotel at Beverly Hills in Los Angeles. From there, I went to Florida International University, FIU, for my restaurant and hospitality degree. A little while after that, when I started to get more into the nonprofit world, I did a Nonprofit Management Institute course at Stanford. Work-wise, I have worked in restaurants ever since I was about 13, 14 years old. I've worked front of the house. I've worked back of the house. I've done private chef gigs. I've dabbled in food writing. And for most better part of my life, I have worked in the wine and food event world. I've worked with and helped produce some of the most highly regarded wine and food festivals around the world. Started working with the South Beach Wine and Food Festival, year 2 of that event back in 2003 or so. Worked on the Aspen Food and Wine Classic. I worked for a China Wine and Food Festival. I worked some events in Jamaica, New York City, Austin. I currently serve as the Director of Special Projects for the Rachael Ray brand. So I travel often and meet Rachel on the road wherever she has to be. Anything that involves food that is outside of her daytime show studio, I usually do something with. I work on her cookbooks, some of her Food Network TV shows, events that she does, cooking demos and appearances that she has. So needless to say, I'm very grateful for the job I have. And I have a great time doing it. I'm the co-founder and director of Rachel's Cooking and Kids charity, which is called Yummo. We have 3 pillars of that charity: cook, feed, and fun. There's an educational component for kids and their families. We do a lot of work with school food around the country. Feeding hungry kids component, we work with organizations like Feeding America and Share Our Strength, No Kid Hungry. And then our funding component allows public high school kids who want to make a career or living in the restaurant and food service industry a chance to do so by giving away scholarships under that program. I'm the founder of Culinary Advisors, which is a strategic culinary advisory service. So I've done projects here and there with various clients. I work with CBS Radio Chicago on their Culinary Kitchen, a brand new culinary studio that they have. I help them curate the chef talent that comes in and out of there. I'm also a partner of Aisle 8 by Flavor Gallery, which is a food-inspired apparel line that I teamed up with Flavor Gallery to create. And now I'm happy to add to my running list of responsibilities, the host and executive producer of this podcast, Beyond the Plate. I do want to talk about why I'm even podcasting, but I first want to start off with some restaurant industry statistics that are kind of mind-blowing. So there's almost 15 million employees and growing in the restaurant industry. 1 in 3 adults in America got their first job experience in a restaurant. And the industry's annual sales are projected to reach $799 billion with a B dollars. There are over 620,000 restaurants in the United States. So needless to say, it's an enormous and fun industry. Along my culinary journey, I've had the fortunate opportunity to meet some of the world's most interesting chefs and culinary professionals and see a side of them that not everyone gets to see. So hence why I'm doing this podcast. What will this podcast be about? We're going to dive into a chef or culinary professional's life growing up as a child within their family, how, when, and why they got into the industry. Did they ever want to throw in the towel when they were in the industry? Stories from their time throughout their career, and social impact and giving and how they give back to their community. That's going to be a big part of this podcast because I think chefs are incredibly giving people, so I want to share their stories. Here's what you can expect about this podcast format and schedule. We plan to upload these podcasts every Wednesday, but every other Wednesday will be a shorter segment that we're going to call Just the Plate. And essentially, this is a segment where a chef will describe a recipe, sharing insider tips and tricks on what makes this their favorite dish. So keep an eye out for those. Those are really exciting, and they will for sure make you hungry. Why should you subscribe to this podcast? Here's what I've learned. I ask a certain amount of questions to all the guests that I chat with, and no joke, I can probably ask one question and talk about it for an hour alone. Some of these questions you'll see us zipping through, some we dig deeper into. I try and get as many in as I can. I try and be not too traditional and ask some basic questions that you either know, can find and look up, or have seen or read or heard. But I hope you find them as inspiring as I do. So in closing out this episode 0, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on your preferred listening site of choice. And you could find me and keep up to date with the podcast across all social media platforms at On Kappy's Plate, or go to www.beyondtheplatepodcast.com for more information. These episodes will be produced by myself, along with Ian Cohen, Joel Yeaton, aka The Wizard, and Sean Petrosian. Thank you all. The music has been provided by Goldford. Find him at iGoldford. And thank you to Kim Haxton for your help in bringing my logo to life. I appreciate it. And to my fellow DHS warriors, thank you for inspiring me to do this podcast. And please check out their podcast, And the Writer Is, with Ross Golan, and The Art of Wrestling with Colt Cabana. As I hope you'll hear me say for many, many, many weeks to come, thank you for listening to Beyond the Plate. I'm Kappy, and remember, there are never too many cooks in the kitchen.